All right. Good evening, everyone. As Nick mentioned, my name is Matt, and I'm here to talk to you today about new and upcoming date and time APIs in the language that we all know and love. So I'm sure we've all had to write code that kind of looks like this. So let's run a little experiment. So throw this into our REPL. We get ourselves a date. Who knows if we say get month, what this is going to return? All right, I see a 2 out here, and that's correct. So that's fun. Maybe months are 0 indexed. How about get day? Anybody know the answer to this one? No, of course not. The answer is 3. Because get day is based on the day of week that it is, and it's Wednesday. Okay. How about get year? Anybody know the answer to this one? That is correct. 125, the most obvious year that we could think of, because they solved the Y2K problem by just extending from 1900. So that's the date APIs that we're currently using. That's great. And obviously, the maintainers of the language know that this is the case. They say that the APIs are consistently difficult to use. If you only have a date and you need to describe additional concepts, then you can't model those, right? If you want to talk about time zones, well, a date isn't going to give you that. If you want to talk about a calendar day or a wall clock time, you don't have visibility into those. So we know that we have to do better than what's available just out of the standard library. So what most people do, and what I do as well, is to just pull in a third-party library. And the great thing about standards is that there's so many to choose from. So I know that I have my own personal favorite, but what third-party libraries to manage date and times are you familiar with? Sure. Okay. Yeah. Any other ones? Okay. Those are cool. I'm not real familiar with those ones, but I use a library called Joda, which works pretty well in that regard. But no matter what you end up choosing, it's still up to you to pull that in. It bloats up your packages, and generally it's not a great experience. So we know that, and the language designers know this as well. One of the original maintainers of a very popular library actually got pulled in to try and improve and create new APIs in the standard library to make this available. And what they basically said was, hey, I know that I could just port this part and parcel with a really popular library that's out there, but we've also learned a lot along the way. And so we're going to use this as a good starting path, but we know that we're going to make something that's going to work for everyone, and it may take a little bit of time, but it'll be available. So the good news is that date has finally come, and we're starting to reap the benefits of having, thank you, Dave, for having a new date and time API built into the standard library. There's a few things that you should be aware of. There's a couple of new conceptual ideas and classes that are going to be added to your library. So if you want to keep track of wall clock representation, so just something that doesn't have a time zone associated with it, but is based on a calendar or a clock, now we have specific times for those, and you don't have to mess with other values. Sometimes you need to know basically what a date provided with you, which was the number of milliseconds since the epoch. But that doesn't include a time zone, so maybe you need to bridge that and create a zoned date time, or just know that, or have a concept for a duration, right? The idea between like 2 minutes or 45 hours. All of these are concepts that we didn't have previously, but now are available. So this is just kind of a high-level idea of like the different tools that you're now going to have available to you with these new features that are available in the language. So I kind of wanted to show what some of these look like in practice. So let's go back to my REPL. Let's make a zone date time. So if we do java.time.zone date time.now, so we can create ourselves a zone date time, and if you want to change that, you can do zdt.toLocal date What are you guys looking at? So, all right, I guess I should probably be honest with you. So this might be Java that I'm showing you. You guys have all been secretly roped into a Java user group talk, but I think you can forgive me because the associations between the way that Java has handled dates and the way that JavaScript has handled dates has been intertwined since the very beginning, and almost everything that JavaScript does around dates has started and is downstream from what Java created. So to give a little bit more details on this, in those mythical fortnight when Brandon Eich was originally creating JavaScript in the depths of the Netscape offices in the 1990s, he knew that he had to have a date and time library built into the standard library. But under Rush, he was ordered to make it look like Java. And so he just ripped part and parcel the spec that java.util.date had and copied it into the Java script library, bugs and all. And so this has been something that has been hindering us on the JavaScript side going forward. So your manager, who always says that Java and JavaScript are the same thing, are kind of right in this case. But we know that we know that we have to do better. On the Java side, Java 8 introduced the date and time APIs to replace the java.util.date. That was back in 2014. So they've been working with that, on the Java side, a better API for the better part of a decade now. That's almost ready on the JavaScript side. They call it the temporal API. There's not consensus on how you pronounce that. That's your GIF versus GIF debate for today. But conceptually, there's a lot of very similar ideas behind this. So this is a script, or this is a diagram for what this looks like on the JavaScript side. And you can see that there are still those same basic concepts of zone, date, time, instance. The names are a little bit different. And so you can see this is an example of the different representations of an ISO 8601 string in Java. And you'll notice that zone, date, time, instance, and all of those have direct equivalents between the Java and the JavaScript side, right? If it ain't broke, then don't fix it. Or maybe it's just that Java got it correct this time, and it makes sense to take those same concepts and apply them in JavaScript. Some of the names are a little bit different, right? Instead of calling it a local date, the temporal API uses plain date. But the basic concepts, like we know that we need calendar representation, we know that we need instances, we need time zones, and the ability to handle them correctly. Yes?
So I guess I'm not familiar. Calendar representation, like there are different parts of the world using different calendars, like we're on Julian.
So there's two parts there. So you can have different calendaring systems. So if you are talking about like the Gregorian calendar versus the Arabic calendar versus the Japanese calendar, you want to be able to display those. And then within each of those, you may want to have just a representation of a day in that regard. So if we want to talk about March 26th, you don't need to create a specific time-stamped date at UTC midnight, which is what we've kind of had to do without an official representation. So most of what's available on the temporal API is namespaced under the temporal global object. And there's a number of methods. I'm not going to get into all of them today, but they're starting to become available. So in this case, you can say, I want to create an instant of time now, and it will generate one for you. You can get fancier from this. So if you want to create a zoned date time, there's a number of constructor arguments that you can create, and then you can manipulate those. The nice thing about these APIs is that unlike the traditional date APIs, all of these are also immutable. So if you want to add a date or if you want to convert, you're always creating new objects, which creates a lot more safety in generating and mutating those rather than mutating the same object. And so in this case, we can just know that March has 31 days in its month because that's just something that it knows. So so the entire thing is really nice to work with. So I've had the opportunity to use this in a couple of real-world applications. The most recent one that I worked with a couple of years ago, I was involved in an overnight 30-hour gravel bike ride that circumnavigated the city of Omaha. And one of the problems that you had to run into was that there were a number of checkpoints that you had to reach by certain times. And if you didn't make there, then the gas station that you were going to be relying on to resupply yourself, or the van that was giving out water bottles, would be closed and unavailable. So I knew that I had to ride at a certain pace in order to meet those deadlines. So I decided to create a little application that would check for that. And there were a couple of sliders that would work here on the bottom, and that would change the pace that I would be riding until sunset on the first day, overnight, or the next day, and how long I would want to stop at each of those 8 stations. So this application, here I'll go down a little bit. As I am scrolling around, oh no. All right, we're going to, here we go. So as I'm scrolling around, you can see that the times are getting, earlier or later. Each of these is independent, so if I'm just changing day 2, then that's going to modify just the times after sunrise on the next day. If I'm going to miss one of those deadlines because then I'm going too slow, then it shows up in orange. So there's nothing crazy about this, but it was really helpful for me to kind of get a gauge for where I should be focusing my efforts compared to where it might be a little bit easier. And the code for this isn't ridiculous. So I was able to pull in the polyfill for temporal and set up some timestamps that I wanted to go after, define the times, and then just say that I know that I need to make this time by 10 p.m. on this day. Or I want to take a look at tomorrow at 4 a.m., and I know that I have to hit those. And so the code, there's nothing that's magical about this, but you can, but it let me work with dates and times in a way that didn't make me want to rip my hair out. And I could also test all of this. Once that I knew what I wanted to do, then it was relatively easy to make assertions that, if I ride at this pace, then I should expect to reach these points on my destination at these timestamps, right? So it gave me a lot of confidence that I was writing the right code. Now, again, the question is, should I spend the time building this application? Would my time have been better spent training for this event? Maybe, but that's not really what we're here to talk about.
Did you hit all the checkpoints?
I did hit all the checkpoints, so I felt very good about that. So the temporal APIs are coming. They have been kind of promised for a long time, but they are now available in what's called stage 3 of the TC39 process, which means that they are done with major changes, and they're recommending that browsers and other JavaScript implementers start integrating them into their systems. And we're starting to see them in real browsers. So Firefox Nightly has it available, Safari's Technology Preview, which probably means that it's going to be in the next version of iOS. If you're using it on the server side, then you can pull it down using Dino. That's how I was demonstrating that in the slides today. And for those places where you can't use it as is, there is a very robust polyfill that has TypeScript types and everything that you can pull into your application. And then once it becomes generally available, you can just rip those out. So that's everything that I had for today. Again, thank you for coming to the Java user group of March of 2025, and I appreciate it, and we'll take any questions. Yep.
Is the polyfill very big? I mean, is it included? Is it going to really bog down your app at all, or is it going to be smaller than any other library that you have?
So it's probably not going to be smaller than any library that you're using right now. They designed it for spec compliance as opposed to like performance or size. But I kind of justified it by just realizing that it has a limited lifespan. So I know that as opposed to Moment or Luxon or date functions or any of the other libraries, this one has an end of life. And so if it's going to be a little bit bigger than those alternatives, I'm okay with that so long as the authored code that I have, I can just pull out the import, in a year or so. right, well, thanks, everyone.